As a seventh grader, you look up and you see a house leader and you think that they're this adult that has their life put together. And then I remember when I was a senior thinking, I am not an adult. I do not have my life put together.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud. I'm here with familiar face, Martin Cothran, and two very special guests. We have Mr. Sean Wheatley. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sean is the head of school here at our Highlands Latin School campus. And Sean, tell us how long you've been with HLS. You've got quite a tenure.
Yes. Mrs. Lowe hired me in 2003, in June of 2003, and I've been here ever since.
So 20 plus years.
20 plus years. That's correct.
Incredible.
It's
I'm sure
fun.
You've worn many hats.
Many hats.
That's right.
Okay. But it's been a joy. It's been a life's work. But I think the students and the school and the people that are around, the teachers and all the support staff that we've had over the 25 years almost has been just absolutely a blessing. Incredible. And it's just been fun.
That's fantastic.
Everything.
Oh, thanks for making time for us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got Mr. Daniel Young. Daniel, thank you for joining us too.
Thank you for having me.
You are a classical studies teacher for upper school here at HLS. You, what else do you do? You are the set director for and you just finished the Christmas play. So just came off of a very busy season. And you work for Memoria Press. Lots of different things. Did I leave anything else out? And
also I graduated from Highlands.
You did.
So K through 12. I came a little after 2003, so I've almost technically been there as long as Sean.
Right.
That's right. Oh, well, thank you, Daniel, for joining us. I am excited about this episode. We've got everybody here today kind of stands in their own right as an expert on our topic today, which is the house system. We have it here at Highlands Latin School. Lots of our other schools practice it, but I don't know that many people are familiar with it. We get a lot of questions, so hoping to shed light on how it works here and why we think it's important to the school culture and to the students. But before we dig into that, we always answer about the books we're reading. Martin, I'm going to let you go first while these gentlemen think about it.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm reading various books
Always.
At the same time, but the one I spent a little bit of time on, read a couple chapters out of this weekend, was called Guardians of Tradition, American School Books in the 19th Century. And I know a little bit about education in the 19th century, but I realized, I really haven't read much about that. It's by Ruth Miller Elson, and it's very interesting on these readers that they had. I mean, this was because they had a bunch of people teaching in classrooms because education was just really being formalized in the United States at that time and becoming more popular and more available. And so you had a bunch of teachers who didn't know what they were doing. And so they were basically given the message that here's school books, here's these readers, and you need to teach the readers. And so it just talks about this whole evolution of education from very strict dependence on readers and how that sort of evolved into something different later on. But it's a very, very interesting book.
That's interesting. John, how about you?
I'm currently reading and rereading a book called Without Precedent. It's an autobiography, or not autobiography. It's a biography on John Marshall, Supreme Court Justice John Marshall, and just a fascinating life. And so I have a tendency just to read a lot of biographies first and foremost. But he just kind of set the bar for what the Supreme Court is even today. And so, when I think I taught Daniel's class. When Daniel was a senior, I was teaching the AP US History course, and I kind of got enamored with John Marshall, longstanding judge on the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice. But some of his decisions really were against the grain at the time because of the changes in political dynamics at the time. I mean, like when Jefferson became president, there were different court cases brought, and he kind of maintained a more of a federalist viewpoint. And so it was just interesting to see how he handled a lot of different political issues in his life. So I like reading that. Yeah, it's a good read.
I
Very
love
easy.
biographies
Yeah.
just for the reason you pointed out. You learn about the person and you
Yes.
learn about that period in history, which
Right.
is just so interesting because you
Yes.
kind of get so many things in one
Right.
with biographies. I too
Yes.
love biographies.
Yes. Yeah,
They're
I think
It's a fun ride.
Yeah, there was a interesting little tidbit before he was Supreme Court Justice. He was one of the diplomats who was sent to France to help prevent a war, and this is during Adams' administration in like 1797 or so.
Huh.
But as a young country, only 10 or so years old, they took the three diplomats, and one of them was obviously Marshall, and they put them in a side kind of area, and they demanded essentially a ransom, a bribe, in order to see and talk with someone that could actually negotiate a peace. And it was Marshall who adamantly said, "We will not do this."
Huh.
We were, and so he kind of stood up to because they were kind of being bullied, and he just stood up to them, and it's called the XYZ affair, and it really, when he came back home, he was kind of a national hero because he just did not cave to the pressures of paying a bribe to meet with a delegate from France. And so it was just really kind of I guess a man of integrity in a lot of ways. He also had another side too that wasn't obviously so, but so he's a complicated man, but his whole life story is pretty interesting. Yes, right.
And just your point about learning history through biography, I know much more
Yes.
about the colonial and revolutionary periods of America from reading biographies of Franklin
Absolutely.
and Hamilton and Washington than from any other history book I ever read. So
It
I
is
think
so
that's really
helpful.
true. And
Yes,
they're just
Oh yeah.
you get because you're getting different angles on
Right.
the same
Exactly.
event.
Yes,
I agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And a biography allows you to anchor something too.
Yes.
I mean, you're
Yes.
anchoring political sentiment, you're anchoring socialism or social dynamics that are going on at the time to particular people. I mean, John Marshall was a second cousin to Thomas Jefferson, and they had very different opinions on how the government should be run, but they're both Virginians. And so it's just kind of very interesting. You see how things are shaped out through people and how people interact with one another and how things occur that way. So I find biographies to be, I read them pretty quickly, and I kind of like them. And usually you learn about someone in a biography, you go like, I gotta go read about that.
It's never ending.
It just never
That's right.
stops and never
That's
stops.
right. That's right. Daniel, how about you?
Mine's a little bit different. I recently started rereading Wind in the Willows. I will say I haven't read it much this week,
Yes.
but I sat down one day and just read 4 or 5 chapters at the beginning because I wanted to start rereading some of the books that we read back in middle school just because it has been a while. And so I've been working through that. And then I'm also been working through a lot of the Old Testament, which is a very
nice.
different note than Wind in the Willows.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm about halfway through Isaiah. It's switching from before he's talking about, basically God's talking about all the cities he's going to destroy, and he's starting to get more of his promises of, okay, Jesus is coming. So hopefully it gets timed well with Advent that I actually
gonna
get to that
say.
part. That was what I was
Yeah.
hoping for. Right now I'm kind of at the place where Hezekiah, the Assyrians come and talk to Hezekiah and tell him, we're going to take your city. And they threaten God. And basically Isaiah comes to him and says, they threaten God, so they're going to get taken down. And so I really like that section just because Hezekiah is a really interesting king because he's from the period where there's all the pagan kings. Then he comes along and gets everything right, takes down the high places. Then almost immediately after him, it goes back to the way it used to be. So I think he's just a really interesting point in the history of Israel in the Old Testament.
That's so interesting.
Things
Yeah.
going back to the way they used to be.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you got a chance to teach a little bit of that. I mean, Daniel does the ancient world before he teaches the Iliad and the Odyssey. But we did a pretty in-depth, with the 7th graders, history review of Mesopotamia, Egypt, but also Assyrians. And so we spent quite a bit of time with Nineveh and and that region of the world too. So your studies are probably related to what you've been teaching a little bit.
It overlapped a lot, especially with one of the 7th grade classes is very, very, they have a lot of questions, inquisitive. And so it was very helpful being like, well, in this book of the Bible, it says this, when one of them was trying to argue with me about something. It was like, well, go read it.
Yes, right. That's great.
Oh, well, on to today's topic, the house system. And this actually comes to us as a listener question. So I want to make sure we read Julie's question. She says, and she emailed, by the way, our podcast at memoriapress.com inbox, which we always appreciate questions there. So if you have one, please write us. So she emailed us and she says, I have a question about house systems. We belong to a 2-day-a-week Highlands School. We recently had our school sorting. This year, the grammar students were invited to watch the older kids get sorted, and my 2 oldest, who are grammar school students, got very interested in this long-standing practice. This got me thinking, would you be able to talk a little bit about the history of houses in universities and schools and their significance? Well, yes, Julie, we are happy to. I think this might be something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. So I hope that today we can unpack where it comes from and how it has shaped our students. And I want to start with the big picture. Sean, where does it come from? And what vision did you have for it when you brought it here to HLS?
Well, I can't take credit for bringing it here to HLS, but a lot of things were from Mrs. Lowe, of course. But I do remember sitting at off of Bishop Lane. There's a little small office with Mrs. Lowe and Brian and Martin and Lee, and she literally came over and just kind of started talking about a way to integrate, 7th graders with 11th graders and 12th graders, and how they did it at the British boarding system schools and things like that. And she was very enamored with it. And all I had at the time was, I believe Harry Potter came out in like 1998 or 1999. And I knew like the word house was, but this was around 2000 and probably 3 or 4. Mrs. Lowe was not necessarily modeling it off that at all. She had really had done her research, and we just wanted a way to establish a culture, and it does elevate the student, like the senior, the junior, to a role of being an exemplar for the class, and so instead of trying to just have your different age groups that do their different things, it was really a way to kind of let the 6th and 7th and 8th graders see your juniors and your seniors, and see those students in a very positive, uplifting leadership role, not like necessarily like a student government. When you think of schools that have a student government, it's not necessarily as visible, and perhaps it's just one president, one vice president, and so we have 4 heads of house, and we have other leadership roles within the house. But I think at the time it really was just a way to say, like, the House of George is going to be run by, student X, and student X is going to be now leading the charge. And we would give them ideas of things that they could do for service or for activities, but they really were the architects for the plan and for the implementation and for doing it. And that really allowed them to work with younger students. And for younger students, as this writer or questioner asked, it does intrigue them. Our 5th and 6th graders want to know which house they'll be in. They ask, like, how do y'all decide? And they always think, like, and I always just tease them. I said, we just put a little hat on you. And then the sorting hat says, what. Right. But in reality, we really do look at boy-girl ratios to try to make sure the houses are balanced. We look at a variety of factors, but it's really not that. All the houses are wonderful and they're great. And so we just try to keep the ratios, kind of even, so that we can kind of have a little equity in that regard. But it's been great. It's been a way to formalize culture, and a way to use your students in the upper grades, which I think is very powerful for them, because they really take on that role seriously. I mean, it's not just a resume builder. It's really something that they take ownership and pride in, and we compete, but I don't know if it's as big about the competition as it is about just the community that we formulate, and the different things that the houses are doing. And so I think it's always been a pretty culture building and a way for us to bring kids together in a smaller group.
Can I shed a little light on what was going on in the room next to Sean?
Sure.
Right.
So I walked in one day and I said, Cheryl, we need to do a house system.
Right.
And she said, well, okay, yeah. Well, she knew what that was.
Yes, right.
So, well, like how would we do that? And I said, we could do student government this way. We could do intramural sports this way. We could do, and but I actually had been thinking of the Harry Potter books, because that's where, but of course, where did Harry Potter get it from? Harry Potter got it from the British school system, right? And so it was something we kind of knew that the British schools did, but we didn't really know a whole lot about it. And then, but we talked for about 30 minutes And then we walked into Sean's office.
Right. Yeah.
Sean, what about this?
Right.
Which was the way a lot of
Yes.
things got done
Yes,
back in those days.
Right. It might have been on a post-it note. They're like, hey, let's do a house system. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
since you lived it by experience as a student, for those who aren't familiar, can you just walk us through the 4 different houses,
Yes.
maybe here at HLS, their names,
Mhm.
what they represent, their colors,
Mhm.
how we talked about how students are placed, but can you give kind
Yeah.
of like a student experience overview? What are we looking at here?
So it's definitely the 4 houses are Andrew, which is red and yellow, David, which is blue and a different shade of yellow,
Important.
Patrick, which is orange and mostly green, and then George is black and then also purple, which the purple is very hotly debated on where they got the purple from because if you look at the flag for the House of George, there's no purple anywhere to be found. But all of the
Isn't that
house
blue and yellow? What that's what?
No, that's David.
That's David.
That's David. Okay.
I got a
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, that's
got
Andrew.
Andrew,
And then
right.
the George one is silver and
We're
navy.
wearing our house ties.
So even George kind of has an identity crisis here and there, which I was in George, but I was a big fan of the purple, even though it technically came out of nowhere.
Right.
But basically the house system for younger students, they got excited and looked into it. Like even at Spring Meadows here, the cottages all are named after a house because there's 4 cottages. And so the younger students look up to the students that make it into the house system. And then I remember as a 7th grader, my brother had an older sibling that was in the House of George and getting to get put in a house finally. He got to experience it and talk so much about it. It's like such a meaningful time. It really makes 7th grade feel like a big event where a lot of times it's the middle of middle school and school. So it's not really a very exciting year. And then seeing it from the teacher perspective now, it's, I think, I forget who told me this, but it's the most excited you'll ever see a student to wear a tie is when they're
Right,
first
yeah.
put in the house
Yeah.
system because they're so proud. Or
Another
even
good
now,
incentive.
they'll start arguing in class about what house is the best. Like they care so much about it.
Uh-huh.
And it's really, just like you guys said, an excuse for the upperclassmen to have a reason to associate and be encouraged to speak to the younger classmen, especially the 7th and 8th graders. I remember first getting put in a house and seeing the house leaders give a speech at the Upper School Advance, which is this retreat that they call it an advance because Highlanders don't retreat. So it's an Upper School Advance.
That's funny.
But it's on a full Saturday. And so in the morning, the 7th graders get put into a house. They do team building activities the whole day. And then right before dinner, the house leaders all get to give a speech and announce everyone else that's on leadership. And it was just such a sweet time where as a 7th grader, you look up and you see a house leader and you think that they're this adult that has their life put together. And then I remember when I was a senior thinking, I am not an adult. I do not have my life put together. So it's a fun time as a younger student to look up at the older students. And then by the time you're an older student, it makes you kind of look back on being a younger student because you realize that people are looking up to you now.
Right.
So I just think it's a really good system for that way. And it also makes people try harder at different aspects of school.
And the names, where do those come from?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to answer that.
Yeah.
So it's the 4 British Isles. So
Okay.
Andrew, I forget, they're the patron saints of different areas of the British Isles. So you might have to help me with, I know
Okay,
that
right.
David is Wales and that George is England, but I forget the other 2.
Andrew is Scotland
Yes.
and Patrick is Ireland.
Okay. And I think that helps frame it up for people. I know when I first got here, I was thinking, what are these names and where do they come from?
Right.
But they do have roots back to.
Well, and then if you go to London and you visit the Parliament, and I guess I didn't even expect this. It was a surprise to me when I walked in. But if you walk into the Parliament building from that hall of the statues there, and you step in, and there's a hall going down to the House of Lords, hall going down to the House of Commons, and I forget what the one right opposite is. But you look up, and there are the 4 saints of England, and it just struck me. Yeah, this ties right in to the whole British. What do you call that? Not mythology, but I don't know. But it just that historical grounding just really hit me when I saw those. Yeah.
So they're rooted in something.
Yeah.
Okay.
They weren't just
Good to
taken
know.
out of a hat.
Right. That's helpful.
And Mr. Lowe now has, we have a flagpole out right off the Shelbyville Road, our main road. And it has the flags of the 4 houses in order of who's winning by points, because what they do, they earn points for mostly service projects. I mean, that's the bulk of their points for different service projects that they do. But they get some points for athletic points for participating in club sports activities and GPA and things like that. But so right now, I believe the House of David is, and that's would be Wales. They're the top flag on there. So
fun.
I have gotten some questions from people who don't go to Highlands Latin School. Why do you have these like British-looking flags on it? And I have to explain the house system to them. But it is neat to see. So once a month, we'll change the flag order if necessary to represent who's in first, second, third, or fourth.
Okay, so it's competition, but it's service too.
It's service. Oh, it's definitely service. I mean, that's the bulk of the point. So they will engage in service activities. They usually come up with their own and propose them, and they will do a service activity with a certain organization where they may be working with them to help the children that are at this. Like I'm thinking of like Volunteers for America and things like that, different organizations. But we will go and support them and help them throughout the year. Each house will have a different one. Okay. Like the soup kitchen recently and some other things like that. But then they also do little projects on campus too. We're going to do a big derby event, the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, fun.
But it's going to be really integrating our K through 6 students into this process with jockeys and riders and stuff like that. It's just a little fun project for them, but they get points for it if they do the best and things like that. So it's fun. Yeah.
And you mentioned different roles, Daniel. Yeah. Can you tell me a couple of the roles? And you even held one in your house?
Yeah, so the main one is the head of house. That's usually held by a senior. And so they're the spokesperson of the house. They're really the person that goes out, encourages the house, and gets to know the students. And then they kind of form a cabinet with 2 other members of the leadership, which is the Minister of War, who is in charge of deciding basically what's the best way to make points, what's a strategy for how to be able to get the lead in the other houses. And then the other one is the Minister of Culture, which is the position that I held my senior year, which unfortunately was in the middle of COVID. So Minister of Culture, which basically is in charge of figuring out how to bring the spirits up of the house. It was very hard to have that position during COVID when everyone's on Zoom for house meetings. And then there's also the house scribe, which is usually a lower, like one of the lower grades in high school. And they're in charge of writing all the emails, communicating with parents, which I feel like the person that has that is always a little overwhelmed because it's the first time they've written an email to an adult half the time. And then there's a few positions that are for 7th and 8th graders that are more making sure 7th graders are still involved. Like I think one of them is the Lanista that's in charge of keeping track of different points that they earn from different classes throughout the day. And then, so it keeps you engaged. And the older you get, the more opportunities you have to serve and lead, which I think is really cool.
I love that you said the example about one of the skills that someone might learn in their role is communication, you know, like you need to communicate properly and appropriately with maybe an adult. I would love to hear from each of you. Do you have examples that stand out to you over the years of how you've seen maybe like a particular student grow because of their role or just the impact of the house system?
Well, I remember, when we first started this, and we had there was a house council, and it was the heads of the 4 houses.
That's right.
I would try to remember their names, but I know who some of them are, but I can't. I don't want to leave anybody out and get in trouble. Right. But they had to make. We gave them some responsibility in making some decisions about kids who were having trouble, and all this stuff, and they were already, those particular, we had some really, I'm sure we still do, but they were a real mature bunch of kids. And I remember putting some of those decisions before them. And I just remember being so impressed by their wisdom, these juniors and seniors that we had. And, we would have, if they had made a wrong decision, we would have stepped in, but they made all the right decisions. Just, it's you give a young person a leadership role and they step into it and they almost automatically become more mature even in that moment, and they take on a responsibility and they want to do it right. And it's people have not had that experience of being exposed to when young people really step up to something. It's really impressive.
That's actually really moving too, because if you think about the older students, the juniors and the seniors, they're about to launch into a different stage of life.
Right.
And what a gift to give them the opportunity to build
it's such great
skills,
experience.
relationships, leadership, all the things that
Absolutely.
they're learning.
Because, I'm remembering back in my high school experience, Sean, maybe it was
Right.
the same when, somebody's running for class president
Right.
on, having Coke in the drinking fountain, literally.
Yes.
Or
That's
the
their
ladybug
platform.
crisis. I was out in California and it was dry and there's lady and this one guy was just convinced that the ladybug, and this is what he ran on, so it's, there's none of that nonsense.
Right.
Right.
It's all meaningful. And,
Yes.
so I just think it's a great way to do leadership, among other things.
Well, to kind of go on with what Martin was saying, I've seen a lot of growth. I mean, individually, I think what you end up seeing is that the students want to give back, and so almost every senior that when they give these induction ceremonies, they bring up in their senior speech to their house, and it's to the whole school, really, the 7th through 12th grade. They always say by name, not by script or anything, but just by choice, the name of their head of house when they were a 7th grader or when they were an 8th grader, or somebody that really made an impact on them that made them want to do this. It's a lot of work. And so, as you mentioned, these are students who are kind of had one foot in school, but they've got one foot in college, and they have a lot of pressure on them. Which school am I right choice? I mean, it's a tough time for them, but they're also choosing to be a leader in a leadership role, and they always go back to saying, "Well, when I was in 8th grade, this particular senior had an impact on me and made me want to," and they just start relating these stories. And I think they just have this real tendency, a lot of our seniors and juniors do, to want to give that to the current 7th and 8th and 9th graders so that they can see it continue to move forward. And so it's that. I mean, there are times that we've had a senior or in a big leadership position that I would have said in 7th, 8th, or even 9th grade, no, I don't think so. I said, they don't seem like they're really engaged, involved. I mean, they're but then they just, they pivot and they start to do more with their house, or they just do more within the school. And by the time they're a senior, you're like, yes, that person could be a house leader. And it's just, I think a lot of it just has to do with giving them an opportunity, but also, encouraging them, supporting them. We have house advisors. So every house has 2 advisors now. When
Faculty advisors.
Yeah, faculty advisors. That's correct. And I think when Martin and I were first doing it that very first year, I mean, there were 10 students in each house, and there's one house leader, and and just either Martin or myself would kind of help. And even with 10 students, I remember one particular girl was house leader. She was like, after the first meeting, she was like, I don't want to do this anymore, just because it was hard. She had to stand up and talk, and sometimes the kids were saying like, well, we don't want to do that. And I just remember Martin and I talking to her. We're at Aldersgate, and we're just like, just be patient, and by the end of the year, she was fabulous. I mean, she was great at it, but there's this shock of taking ownership and a little bit of fear to it, and that's okay. I mean, that's a good experience for them to have, and then they move through it through help, and the advisors, the faculty advisors will help. And it's almost interesting when you're talking to a house leader. It's almost like you're talking to a new teacher sometimes, and that they get a little frustrated after a meeting, like they're not listening very well, they're not doing this, and I'm like, now you know what it's like. So a little bit, but people, right? But that's but they always do well, and I think and seeing your own peers in that leadership position, I just think really is a boon to our culture, because I do think that in a lot of schools, the seniors don't want anything to do with the 9th graders, and probably the 9th grade parents don't want their 9th graders have anything to do with the seniors either, because they're like, oh, they're off in a different world, they've got a different thing. And so at our school, it's very different. That's a really great opportunity for you to be able to sit with a senior or a junior at a house meeting and discuss a project together and to work on something together. And I think it's been just great.
And see someone worth modeling.
Yes, exactly. Right. And I think that goes back to what Mrs. Lowe was saying at the very beginning, was just like, if you use your seniors and juniors not in a way that shows them respect and also honors what our juniors and seniors have read the Iliad, the Odyssey. They have read all the books that these 7th and 8th graders and 9th graders and 10th graders are reading. They've had the similar struggles, and the kids know that, and they know that, and so they're not just being talked to by someone that's just foreign. These are their friends, and so I think it's encouraging, and they like to do things with each other. I mean, so who wouldn't, as a 7th or 8th grader, like to hang out with a bunch of seniors and build a tent and get ready for the induction ceremonies? I mean, they're thrilled to do it. I mean, they're so happy to do it, and so I think it's one of our secret treasures there that we have. We have great upperclassmen that want to do this and don't make me do this. They want to do it.
Yeah, sounds like
yeah.
it. Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm thinking about someone who might be listening who has a small school, or they're thinking about starting a school, and this sounds intriguing, but Martin, how would you encourage them if they feel maybe a little overwhelmed, or should I try it?
Well, I think you need to become kind of familiar with how the system works. And I think actually what we've talked about today, just listening to this would be a very good introduction to that. But some schools already have some system of student government, and I would just say this is so far superior to any other way of doing that. It's not even comparable to me. It's almost a different thing, but it is the way we do some of those things here, in addition to a lot of other things. And it's not hard necessarily. I mean, you have to outline this for your students. You have to give them a vision of what this is. Right. You have to, and that does require some knowledge of how this is already being done. We ran in the Classical Teacher magazine not too long after we started this an article. Yeah. It was called House. No, not the television show, because that was
popular at the time.
Yeah, there's and we explained this, and I don't think any other school was doing this any other classical school anyway was doing this at that time. No. And then we started getting all kinds of emails and calls from schools about this, and we just tried to explain it over the phone.
That's right.
But I also think that if anybody, because I don't know how much our schools division deals with this particular question. Right. But I'm sure Sean would be glad to talk to anybody about
absolutely.
this.
Yes.
And I think that's the play. That's what I would do. Is I would call Sean and have him explain how this works and how you might start something like this. But we did. That's an old article.
Yes.
But we probably need to fish that out, and we could probably give that to people, because that does explain some of how initially we started this.
Yes. So. And with ours, I mean, now that we have, each house has about 50 or so members, 55 members. Before we had 10 in each house, and so like 40 total in the 4 houses. So I don't think you need to be necessarily overwhelmed with it. I think if early on, I believe one of the just ancillary, I guess, kind of benefits of the house system was organization. Just to be like, I need the house of George and the house of Patrick to be over here for right now, and they knew exactly what that meant. It just kind of put them, and they knew, and that was very helpful. And I think that if you had a small school of, even 15, 20 students, you'd start with 2 houses and start with just the leader of your house. We don't have a vote for it. I mean, what we have is we have a track record of students, as Daniel pointed out, that when they get to be juniors and seniors, we know the students who have really worked within the house system have been involved, engaged, and really want to. And so we ask them to serve. And we do meet, a faculty does meet, and we discuss this, and like who would be the best, head of house or minister of war and those types of things. And so it's not posters up in the hallway, vote for me, vote for me. No, it's not that. It's more of it's an honor system. And yes, and sometimes the students might want to be this or not want to be that. But we just try to talk with them about what we see as their strengths and how they could help the house in a certain way. And so I think you could still do the same with 20 students. If you have 2 or 3 seniors, and you'd like this person to be, reflective of your culture, and they would be a good example, role model for, I think, and start with one project and one service project. Let's go out into the community and do this, or something. Maybe if you're renting from your church, I know that we did this at the church we rented at before, was just do a deep clean on the hallways and everything that we were there. I mean, because we were sharing the space. And so we just wanted to really impress upon them how much we were appreciative of it. And so when they came in on Sunday or whatever, they're like, wow, this is like, somebody really like went to town on cleaning. And we're like, that was one of our houses did that. Yeah. And that was just one of the ways that they tried to show appreciation for what they've done. So I don't think you got to wait to have all your ducks in a row. You just kind of get a couple ducks in a row and then get going.
Yeah. I like that you shared that. It's, what I got from what you said was it's okay to keep it simple.
Yeah, right.
What's right in front of you. Right. And it will, as your students grow, as your school grows, so will this system.
Yes, it will.
And that's a good thing. It'll change over time, just like it did here, just like it does probably in any school.
And it's an essential part of the character of our school. I mean, this is an important thing. I mean, our academics are obviously very important, but learning just maturity and how to relate to other people and how to lead and those kinds of things. I don't know any way you could do it better than this.
Well, I want to close with a question to each of you. And I might want to start with you, Daniel, since you're the one that got to experience this start to finish as a student. If you could just in one sentence say what you think the house system gives students, what would you say? What did it, you can say it gave me whatever, or you can say like, I've seen it give students this.
What I would say it gave me, okay, I'm going to try to get this in one sentence, was it gave me something to look forward to and then something to give back.
Ooh.
So it's something where when you're building up towards it, and then finally when you get into it, you're like, this is such a special thing. So it's like, even as a 7th grader, you can immediately look back and be one of the big kids in a house system to a 3rd grader. So it's something that I think really makes people look back on their time if they've been there for a while.
Okay. Look forward to and look back. That's really, really good. Thanks, Daniel. Martin?
That's a hard question to answer. I
actually thought about being
coming.
Martin. I thought about it being one word.
One word.
And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to give him a little. One sentence.
Well, and this probably isn't the most important thing, but what camaraderie is. True camaraderie of people who are sort of your equal in terms of age and all that other stuff, and people that are not. I mean, you're dealing with the leaders of your house. You get put in a position of leadership over those other people, and that's life. And you need to learn that somewhere. And I think this is a great way to learn it.
Camaraderie. And that's a good example of it. Your whole life, you will have people that you answer to. And in many, many cases, we'll have people that answer to us, whether they're our little people or the people we manage at work or church settings, wherever it might be. Yeah.
Okay. You got to get used to it.
That's right. Okay. Sean?
I would say on the one word front, I think service. It is our means by which I find that when the houses are organizing their events, it's stressful. They have tests. They have all the other things to do, but they are really oriented themselves towards whether they're putting on a Easter egg hunt like the House of David does for the K through 2 students. They really go all out in it. Or if they're doing the Gobble Wobble, which is a big run for the families, and they do these little races and all kinds of things. With the House of Andrew recently completed. I mean, they're there early. They're there late. These students are doing this work, and it's all so other people can attend and have a wonderful experience, a wonderful event, and things like that. House of Patrick does a big talent show that's a really big deal for everybody. It's a lot of fun. House of George does a winter carnival, and these are all internal events that try to bring in the school community, and they don't just like, what do you want me to do type of thing. They're putting me to work. They're like, can we get me 3 tents? Can we get this? Can we get that? I'm like, I think so. We'll look around. We'll see. But I mean, they have big ideas, and it's really fun to help.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Serve others.
Okay. Service, camaraderie, looking back, looking forward. Wonderful. And Martin, I'm glad you pointed out that article. We'll see what we can do to post that in the show notes.
I just want to make the point. It started here.
That's right. That's right. With Martin.
With Sean, Cheryl and I would come up with crackpot ideas and go and talk to Sean. He'd talk us down, but
not very often. They were always good ideas. I was like, but how are we going to do this?
Yeah,
that's right.
And they would just kind of walk away and go, oh, that's. And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out.
That's funny.
But they always had great ideas.
Well, Sean and Daniel, thank you for joining us today. And always, Martin, it's glad to have you. Well, your face.
I'll be back.
Oh, you will. We know. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.